Hello everyone, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a mantling system in Unreal Engine 5. But before we start, please like this video and subscribe my channel for more Unreal Engine tutorials. Thank you. Okay, for this tutorial I'm going to use this animation asset for mantling, and I share the download link of this animation asset in comment section of this video. First, here in asset details section, I search for root motion and I set enable root motion to true, and I also set force root lock to true. Now I save and close this animation asset, and here I right click and create an anim montage from this anim asset. Now I'm going to make sure that motion warping plugin is activated inside my project. So here from edit tab I open plugins, and here I search for motion warping, and as you can see here this plugin is activated in my engine. But if you don't have this plugin activated, make sure to activate it before starting this tutorial. Alright, now here I open this anim montage that I just created, and here in this section I right click on this timeline, and here from add notify state section I add a motion warping, and I set the beginning of this motion warping on 6th frame, and the end of it I set it to frame 12, and here I slide to frame 15, and here I right click again and add another motion warping notify, and I drag it until frame 30. Okay, now I select my first motion warping notify, and here in this section warp target name I name it warp 1, and I also here search for ignore z axis and set this ignore z axis to false, and I also set warp rotation to false. Now I select my second motion warping notify, and here in this section warp target name I set the name to warp 2, and again I set ignore z axis to false and warp rotation to false. Alright, now I save and close this anim montage, and here now I open my character blueprint, and in this case it is bp underscore third person character, and here I create another function and I name it mantle trace. Now I'm going to add some inputs and outputs to this function. First I add an input in type of float and I name it trace length. Now I add another input in type of float and I name it trace z offset. And another input again in type of float and I name it height multiplier. Alright, now I add an output in type of vector and I name it mantle position 1. And I add another output again in type of vector, and I name it mantle position 2. And I also create a new variable in type of boolean, and I name it can mantle. And I also add two local variables in type of vector, and I name the first one pose 1 and second one pose 2. Now I disconnect this pin and place this return node here, and here I drag and drop my can mantle boolean and select set can mantle, and here I set it to false, and here I drag a node and search for line trace by channel. And now I connect this draw debug type to this input node. Now I disconnect it, and here I have this draw debug type as an input. Alright, and now here I right click and search for get actor location. I connect it to a start, and here I drag a node and add vector node. Now here I right click and search for get actor forward vector. Here I drag a node and add a multiply node, and now I right click on this input and convert it to a float. Alright, and now I connect it to trace length input, and now I connect this one to here and also this one to end. Now here from this return value I drag a node and add a branch node, and also I drag a node from this out hit and click on brick hit result. And in false part of this branch node I set this can mantle variable to false, and for true part I drag a node and add a sphere trace by channel node. Now I connect this location to end, and here for start location I get my height multiplier input, and here I drag a node and search for select float, and for the condition of this select node here I drag and drop my character movement component here, and here I search for is falling and connect it to here, and here I set this B to 1. Now I drag a node from here and add a multiply node and connect it to here, and for here I search for trace Z offset input and connect it to here. And now from this location of this briquette result, I drag a node and add vector node, and here I right click on this input and click on split extract pin, and here I connect this multiply node to this Z of this vector. Alright, and now I connect this add vector to a start point of this line trace by channel, and here I right click and search for debug type input, draw debug type input and connect it to here, and also I set radius to 10. And again from this STL trace by channel I drag a node from this return value and add a branch node, and from this output I get briquette result. And for true part of this branch node I drag and drop this position 1 local variable and get setter of this variable. And now from this impact point of briquette result I drag a node and add vector node, and here I right click and search for get actor forward vector, and now I drag a node and add a multiply node. Now I convert it to float, and here I insert -50, and now I connect it to here, and I connect this one to here, and now I drag and drop my pose2 local variable here and get the setter of this local variable and connect it to here. Now I drag a node from this impact point, and here I add vector node just like this, and here I get a copy of these two nodes, this get actor forward vector and this multiply node, and here I multiply it by 120, and now I connect this to here and this one to here. Now I drag and drop my can mantle boolean setter here, and here I set it to true, and now I drag a node and search for a sphere trace by channel. Now I set I set this radius to 10, and here again I right click and search for draw debug type input and connect it to here, and for this start and end location I drag a node from this pose2 local variable setter here, and I add vector node, and here in the Z axis I insert 20 and connect this output to both start and end. And here from this return value I drag a node and add a branch node, and in true part I drag and drop setter of can mantle boolean and set it to false, and for false part of this branch node I get setter of my pose2 local variable and connect it to the false part. And now from here I drag a node from this impact point, and here I add this add vector node, and again I get a copy of these two nodes and paste them here, get forward actor and this multiply, and here I multiplied by 50 and connect it to here, and I also connect this output to this pose 2 setter. Now from here I drag and add a branch node and connect them both to here. And for the condition of this branch node, first I drag and drop pose 1 and pose 2 local variables, and here I drag a node and add equal node for this one, and I also do the same for this pose 2. From here I drag a node and add an OR boolean node and connect them both to here, and also connect this to condition of this branch. And for false part of this branch node, I drag a node and add a sphere trace by channel node, a sphere trace by channel, this one. And here I drag and drop my pose 1 local variable, and I right click and split extract pin, and here I drag a node and search for make vector, connect this x to x and y to y, and I connect it to a start of this sphere trace. And now I drag and drop my pose 2 local variable here, and here I add this add vector node, and now I connect it to this end, and I also here I drag a node from here and search for make vector, break vector, sorry. And now I connect this Z axis to here, and I also set the radius to 10, and here I also set, here I insert 100, I add it by 100, and I also right click and search for draw debug type input and connect it to here. And for true part of this branch node, I get setter of this can mantle variable and I set it to false. And now from this sphere trace by channel, I drag a node and add a branch node, and I also connect the true part to here. And now here I get my return node of function. This I drag and place this return node here, and I also connect this one to here and the false part of the branch to here. And I finally set this pose 1 local variable to here and pose 2 to here. Alright, I know this function is too complicated and messy, but don't worry at all. I share the link of these functions nodes in the comment section of this video. Now I go back to event graph, and here I search for an input, for example left shift, and now I drag and drop mantle trace function here and connect it to here. Now I set this trace length input to 120 and trace Z offset to 200 and height multiplier to 0.5, and I also set draw debug type to for duration. And now here I add a branch node and I connect this can mantle boolean to the condition of this branch, and for false part here I drag a node and add this jump function, but for true part I'm going to create a new macro and I name it mantle. Now I'm going to add some inputs to this macro. First input in type of vector and I name it location 1, and second input again in type of vector, I name it location 2, and third one in type of float, I name it Z offset hand. Alright, and another one again in type of float and I name it Z offset landing. And another input again in type of float and I name it montage length. Alright, I also add an execution pin to this input and I place it in the top. Alright, now I drag a node from here and search for set actor enable collision. And here I set this new actor enable collision to false, and now here I get my character movement component and here I drag a node and search for set movement mode. And here I set movement mode to flying. Now here you should have this motion warping component available inside your character blueprint, but if you don't have this component, you can hit this add icon and here you can search for motion warping and simply add it to your character blueprint class. Now I drag and drop this motion warping component here, and now I drag a node and search for add or update warp target, and now I connect it here, and here I drag a node and search for make motion warping target. And here as you can see I need a name, so here I open my anim montage, my mantling anim montage, and here I select my first motion warping notify, and here I copy this warp target name, which is warp 1. I copy and simply paste it here. And for this location I drag a node from this location 1 and add add vector node, and here I right click and split extract pin, and now I connect this Z axis to Z offset hand, and I connect it to location. And for rotation, here I right click and search for get actor rotation. Now here I get a copy of all of these nodes with Ctrl C and paste them here. And here I need the name of second motion warping notify, which is var2. I copy and paste the name here. And for location, again I drag a node from this location to input and add this add vector node. Here I right click and split extract pin, and now I connect this Z offset landing to Z axis, and now I connect it to the location of this motion warping. Now here I drag and drop my mesh, and here I drag a node from this mesh component and search for play anim montage. Play montage. Alright. And now I connect it to here, and for montage, here I select this mantle montage that I prepared for this tutorial, and here I drag a node and add a delay node, and I connect this duration to this montage length. And now here I drag a node and search for set actor enable collision, and now I set it to true. And now I get my character movement component, and here I search for set movement mode and I set it to walking. Alright, and now here I drag and place my output node and connect it to here. Now I close this macro, and now I go back to event graph, and here I drag and drop the macro that I just created and connect it to the true part of this branch. And here I connect this mantle position 1 output of this mantle trace function to input of this macro, and I also connect mantle position 2 to this location 2. And for Z offset hand, I insert -100, and for offset landing I insert 30, and here for montage length I set it to 1. Okay, now I compile and now I run the game. As you can see here, I have placed this box inside my level, and now if I press left shift, and as you can see here, my character jumps because there is no height in front of my character. But if I get close to this box and press shift, as you can see, my character mantles. But this animation is not best option for mantling. If you can use a better animation, I recommend you to use another animation instead. Alright, if this tutorial was useful for you, please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.